Okay, so quick disclaimer, guys. This little dude is a crackhead, and he is running back and forth and trying to jump on the laptop and making lots and lots of noise. So we're sorry if there's any noise throughout the video. Off you go. Greetings, creatures! I'm Rachelle.
I'm Kalie.
And I'm Blake.
And we are
Paranoia Percentage.
We're just three girls who are a little anxious about our world.
And if you don't know what we do here,
We're fascinated by cryptids, conspiracy theories, and pretty much everything weird.
I'm pretty sure the cat's about to jump directly on the keyboard.
More than Okay.
good boy.
Teabag Minnie's head. Okay.
Well, today we're talking about a really creepy subject because it is actually, for us, it is what, the 29th or 30th?
Today's the 30th. Today's the day before Halloween.
So, being Halloween
Nuts.
Eve, we wanted to do some All Hallows Eve. We wanted to do something a little bit creepier. So we're doing the Legend of La Llorona. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
not
not
Very
sure.
white sounding, but like, yeah.
Very
La
white.
Llorona.
It
It's just
originated
like-
in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, well, I'm going to go back to the Spanish conquistadors.
Ooh, all
Yeah,
right. That's
Possibly
exciting.
Spain, yeah.
Again, I
Nice.
have my notes on my phone. I don't know about you.
I do.
All right. So this is mostly going to be me and Blake with this episode, and you're going to
I'm
be
just here.
reacting a little bit, and also hopefully we can creep you out.
It takes a lot to creep me out, so good
Well,
luck.
this one does have children, so that is something
Children
that
do
normally
creep me out.
affects
That's
you.
fair, yeah.
That's not how we mean
Children themselves. Anyway.
She's just, she is not an entity. She is a group of children. That's all she is.
I mean, that would
Yeah.
creep me out, yeah.
Oh, that would creep me out too.
Like a Children of the Corn situation.
La Llorona is also often called the Weeping Woman and sometimes the Wailing Woman. And I'm going to first kind of go into the origin story behind her, what she is, and then we'll move on to sightings, which I think Blake is going to take charge of that part.
Once again, sorry for the herd of elephants. They never stop. They never stop.
La Llorona is traditionally called the Weeping Woman or the Wailing Woman because oftentimes when she is sighted, which Blake will talk about more in-depth sightings, she typically appears as a woman in a white dress that cries and wails and screams, which I'll talk about maybe why she does that.
That's probably where the nickname the Woman in White comes from, because that's kind of a separate entity that I'll talk about later, but she's a lot of times grouped in with.
Because also in that time period, it was incredibly common for, instead of wearing black like we do today, women would wear white in mourning instead of black.
Really?
That's true. Yeah.
So actually,
Isn't that cool?
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, and especially in Spanish cultures, whereas we kind of more see white as like the kind of like wedding like tradition.
I know in Spain in the time of King Henry VIII, because I just finished reading a novel about King Henry VIII. In Spain at that time, they would wear yellow to symbolize mourning.
Yeah,
Because that's
instead
actually,
of mourning, it was a celebration of life.
well, when Catherine of Aragon died, Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII wore yellow because it's a sunny color in England, and it was like they were celebrating, but it was also kind of a stiff to Spain and Catherine of Aragon. Isn't that terrible?
That's awful.
I wonder if
Henry VIII was not a good dude.
In general, yeah.
I wonder if there's a possibility that she's wearing yellow, but it just looks white because she's a ghost.
Conspiracy theory.
So
But
maybe
she-
she's wearing white, but also maybe she's wearing
She might be wearing
She
yellow.
might be wearing faded yellow.
very, very faded yellow.
She typically is thought of to be rooted in the tradition of the Hispanic population. Usually this is really popular in kind of the southern western part of the United States and then down in Mexico. And then but some reports claim that the legend could have begun in the 16th century with the Spanish conquistadors. So
Okay.
way prior, way far away. And then maybe it was carried over to
That would
South
be
America.
about the right time period for Henry VIII, too.
When was Henry VIII?
The 1500s. 16th century would be the 1500s.
Yeah, she totally could be wearing yellow then.
You heard it here first. We just discovered something.
She's actually wearing yellow, and all the reports are wrong.
All sightings are wrong,
It just happens to be. She only shows herself to colorblind people.
including the women.
Including women, yeah. Which is rare, but
Yeah,
but she only
Yeah, I
shows
thought
herself
women
to
couldn't be
people.
colorblind.
they can be.
They
It's
can
just
be.
incredibly rare.
It's just not very common.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a whole bunch of different variations as to what she is, who she was, how the legend came about, and I'm going to go over a couple before you go into the woman in white. So broadly speaking, typically the legends say that she was a beautiful woman, and a lot of them say that her name was Maria, and she caught the eye of a wealthy Spaniard, and he married her. He did not marry her. That's the thing. He did not marry her, but he got her pregnant, and they had 2 sons together. Of course, at the time, that was not cool. But he totally wouldn't commit to her. He was just like, I'll knock you up, but like, no, I don't want to get married. But even after they had sons together, she caught him strolling with a wealthy woman. So she was full of rage. She was absolutely just so pissed off that she took her 2 sons down to a river and drowned them, and then herself.
And apparently, right after she like drowned them, she like cried out, "I mis hijos," which means like, "Oh, my children."
Yeah, the legend says that she immediately regretted
In
it.
regret, and then
Right.
she drowned herself
Right.
with them. Another legend that I read was that basically the same story as you, with like he like got her pregnant and everything, but then he rode up in a carriage with another woman with her and her sons on the road, and he spoke only to his sons and not to her. And then because she was like so full of rage and jealousy over her sons, she like took them down to the river, which they were apparently like right by, and drowned them, or put them into the river, like not even like actually physically held them down and drowned them. She just threw them into a raging river.
Mm-hmm.
And then she immediately regretted it, chasing them down the riverbank. But whenever she realized that she couldn't reach them in time, she jumped into the river herself and drowned herself as well.
I mean, I feel a little bit sorry for her if that's the case, but at the same time, it's like, is that
Why
how
would
you get back at a man?
Yeah.
I mean,
kill
it
his children?
sounds to me like a mental break.
Yeah.
Probably, but still, I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty severe escalation.
Drown the dude, not the kids.
Yeah.
There's possibility that it could have originated back in ancient Greek times with the myths. There were 2 people called Jason and Medea. And Medea is actually a play now. I haven't seen it, but it's based off of this. Jason leaves Medea for a younger princess, and then she murders her 2 sons, their 2 sons. And in this case, though, she does not drown herself. So it's a similar story that this possibly could have originated from. So can you tell us about the woman in white?
Basically, it's just a variation of La Llorona. I'm going to go a little pop culture because the reason that I know anything about this and the reason I even saw the similarity is because I used to watch Supernatural. The very first episode of the TV show Supernatural deals with a woman in white. Same exact storyline. The woman, the woman finds out that her husband is cheating on her, and so she drowns her 2 children in the bathtub and then jumps off a bridge. Very sad, equally sad. But the inspiration for that episode was La Llorona. So a white lady, or woman in white, lady in white, usually associated with, or yellow, usually associated with rural areas, local legends of tragedy. So there are many women in white spread out across the United States. Mm-hmm. There's a famous one in Chicago. That's the one that I looked at because we were in Illinois. So, but yeah, there's a ton of different ones, and the episode is really good description of La Llorona. Yeah,
In general, La Llorona is like a very, very popular like story now because of like The Curse of La Llorona, which is a movie that came out not too terribly
there's
long
actually
ago.
quite a few. I was looking into it. There's actually quite a few films. That was the most recent.
Yeah.
But there's quite a few films.
There's quite a
La
few
Llorona.
films. There's also quite a few songs, like music that was written by like Hispanic artists or something like that, or Mexican artists.
I always think of that song, My Sharona, but it's when I was researching, when I was researching it, I kept singing to myself, la 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 la, Llorona.
Yeah, I just, every time you guys say Llorona, I'm like,
Llorona.
well, I also speak Spanish.
Yeah, I don't.
I took Spanish. I have forgotten it.
I speak French.
Since high school.
I like pretty fluently speak Spanish.
I speak French, and I think if it was a French word, it would probably be pronounced with the L the way I said it. That's probably why I keep saying it wrong.
Yeah. Well, because of the double L, like that's the only reason that it's pronounced with a y sound instead of a
like tortilla instead of tortilla.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Tortillas.
Every time I'm in a Mexican restaurant and somebody says tortilla, I literally have to keep myself from screaming out loud.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it makes me so upset. Okay,
Or
sorry.
like instead of fajitas, it's fajitas.
Oh God, no.
Vagina.
Who
Yeah.
says that? Does
Actual
anybody say
people.
that?
Actual real life
people do
people.
that.
Yeah.
All right, do you want to talk about some sightings?
Yeah, let's talk about some sightings. Well, actually, there was one more origin story that I had actually heard.
Oh, okay.
This one wasn't with like the Spanish conquistadors or anything like that. It was actually just a woman in Mexico. I think it was like circa 1800s or something like that, like a couple hundred years later after
Oh yeah, that's pretty late in
the
the game.
Spanish conquistadors. But this one, it was actually that a woman named Maria.
Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common denominator with like the story of La Llorona. But Maria caught the eye of a wealthy man. But in this story, he like lavishes her with gifts and is truthfully in love with her. And then they get married. After she bore him 2 sons, then he becomes disinterested in her and more interested in the children.
I mean, that's standard parenting.
She becomes enraged with jealousy over these children. And so in this one, he leaves her for like a younger, more beautiful woman. But she is of his same class. So it's more of a class thing than a like young and beautiful thing.
So the moral of this is if you're going to leave your woman for another woman, leave her for an older woman so she doesn't kill you or your children.
So basically, like it ends pretty much the same way. She drowns her children and then drowns herself in remorse. But
And she roams screaming and wailing and trying to find her kids.
yeah, and actually another like part of that origin story is that basically whenever she's trying to get up into the gates of heaven, God basically tells her you can't come into the gates of heaven until you find your children. And so
I read that one.
yeah, so basically her children
So sad.
are set to roam the earth in like remorse for their own lives, and she's set to roam the earth in search of her children. Therefore, whenever parents are like talking about the story of La Llorona, they tell it to their children.
So the term La Llorona, what does that mean?
The
in
crying
Spanish?
woman.
The crying woman. Okay.
Yeah, the crying woman or the wailing woman.
Okay.
The parents of like children in Mexico tell the children like you can't go out at night or near rivers or anything like that because La Llorona will take you and use you to get into the gates of heaven. They like tell children not to go near rivers or near anything like that at night because La Llorona will take them.
Right. And it could just be a word of warning to make them scared to go near bodies of water at night by themselves.
Yeah.
No.
But-
Which you shouldn't be doing anyway.
Getting into some sightings.
If any of the people that we quote your sighting, if you're listening or if you're somebody that knows the person who was talking about this, hit us up on Facebook. We would love to talk more about it.
I would love to hear about your stories about La Llorona.
At the end, I want to talk about my own possible La Llorona sighting.
Ooh, okay.
There was this boy, his name was Patricio Lugan. He and his family saw her on a creek between Mora and Guadalupita, New Mexico. Patricio Lugan, which I know I'm saying that wrong, was a boy. He and his family saw her on a like riverbank between Mora and Guadalupita, New Mexico. As the family was sitting outside talking, they saw a tall, thin woman walking along the creek. She then seemed to float over the water, started up the hill, and vanished. However, just moments later, she reappeared much closer to them and then disappeared again.
Creepy.
The family looked for footprints, but finding none, they had no doubt that the woman was La Llorona.
Ooh.
Yeah. She had been seen like along quite a few rivers, pretty much across the entire Southwest America. And the legend has become part of Hispanic culture. Also, another part of that legend is that children who do not treat their families well are more likely to be stolen by La Llorona.
Is it because like maybe she thought her children were misbehaved, so she thinks that maybe they're her kids, possibly?
Yeah. So then she'll teach them a lesson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because another story was by a man by the name of Garcia.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Garcia, who was an outspoken boy who often argued with his mother and father. After a heated argument, Mr. Garcia, along with his brothers Carlos and Augustine, which are much easier names to say, I don't
I
understand
like the
why,
name Augustine, actually.
Yeah.
I've always liked that name.
decided to leave their ranch in Ojo de la Vaca to head toward the Via Real de Santa Fe. However, when they were along their way, they were visited by a tall woman wearing a black tapelo and a black net over her face. So
Why is
basically,
it
this
always
woman,
tall women? Because the other one you said was tall and skinny. It's
Yeah.
always tall women.
Yeah.
So I can't become a woman in white because I'm too short.
Yeah, true. Two of the boys were riding in the front of the wagon when the spirit appeared on the seat between them.
Oh, no.
So have you ever done the Haunted Mansion ride at Disney?
No,
No.
I've never been to Disney.
Same.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I've been twice, but go
Subtle
off anyway.
Subtle flex, but okay.
That's a little bit. The second time that I went, we rode the Haunted Mansion ride. You're going through, and there's like mirrors on the walls, right? So you're sitting on like this little, like a mine cart. You're sitting in this little mine cart thing, and there's all these mirrors. So as you're going along, you're kind of looking at the mirrors and stuff, and all of a sudden there's a ghost sitting next to you.
Yeah.
and you're just like, huh? Of course,
How did
can't
they
see
make it happen?
It's in the mirror somehow.
Oh.
It's in the mirror. Yeah, like you're looking in the mirror, and then you see the ghost next to you, and then you're like, what the? And you look
No.
next to you, and there's nothing there, and then you look back, and it's gone.
I already have issues with mirrors and
Yeah.
ghosts and stuff that like
Yeah.
it freaks me. Mirrors are already freaky.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to. Mm-mm.
Well, speaking of mirrors, a lot of people have tied. When I was doing research for La Llorona, there was a lot of tying into the Bloody Mary legend too, which of course that takes in mirrors to a whole new level.
I hate Bloody Mary.
It's basically exactly what happened to these boys. They were just like riding along, just like having their own little merry way.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden a woman was just like right in between them.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills.
Yeah. So
You were trying to scare me, and we're scaring
I
you.
know.
So
I'm just thinking of just a random woman
Yeah.
just appearing next to me like
Yeah. So then she was silent and she continued to sit there until Mr. Garcia finally turned the horses around and headed back home, at which time she said, "I will visit you again someday when you argue with your mother."
No, thank you.
I would just be so nice to my mother from then on out. Absolutely, that would teach me a lesson.
Okay, not gonna lie, that one creeped me a little. That got under my skin a little.
Especially whenever she spoke to them like, okay. Anyway,
Okay, I got the creepy crawlies now.
same. Also, another woman, this was a direct quote from Kathy. "During my travels to New Mexico, I visited with a very friendly Hispanic gentleman who I asked if he believed in La Llorona. He wholeheartedly confessed that he did and was very open about his cultural beliefs. However, when I asked him if he believed in ghosts, he stated that he did not." Interesting. Also, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the tall wailing spirit, again,
She has
tall,
to be tall. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't want to be La Llorona.
has been
Yeah, it sounds
repeatedly
miserable. It does sound miserable.
So she has been seen repeatedly in the PARA building, which is the Public Employees Retirement Association. Don't know why she's just like chilling in a state building, but anyway, it's
It's a
built.
retirement association. She's just retired.
Yeah, she's tired.
She's retired.
She's retired.
Yeah, she's old, guys.
It happens to the
Yeah,
best of
she's
us.
from the 16th century. She's old enough to retire now.
It
Yeah, I
was
should think so.
but the building was built on land that was once an old Spanish Indian graveyard
Aha.
and is near the Santa Fe River. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Many people who have been employed there tell of hearing cries resounding through the halls and feeling unseen hands pushing them while on the stairways.
So she's trying to just kill
She's
people.
trying to just like push people down the stairs, and they're not even children. These are just like people. Also, she has been heard wailing at night next to rivers by many, and her wanderings have grown wider, following Hispanic people wherever they go.
Whiter. I heard whiter. Yeah.
Wider.
Yellower.
sorry.
Her movements have been traced.
She's had enough of us.
Okay. All right.
I love you too.
We love you too. We do.
Her movements have been traced throughout I'm normally a very patient person.
That's how you know I love you, because I only ever make fun of people I love.
Her movements have been traced throughout the Southwest and as far as Montana on the banks of the Yellowstone River. The Hispanic
Yellowstone River. The yellow thing is coming back. No, the yellow thing is coming back. I'm telling you, this is a thing. Conspiracy theory. She's wearing yellow, not white. What?
I'm going to bed.
Okay.
Good night. So anyway, the Hispanic people believe that the weeping woman will always be with them. She will just follow them wherever they go.
All of them? Is she many of herself?
I mean, maybe she's a ghost, so maybe she can be in multiple places
the woman
at
in
once.
white situation, like there are multiple women in white.
So all of the women who've died wearing a white dress, they have all agreed to follow everybody around.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily that they have to be wearing a white dress. I think it's just women who are jilted and then murder their children.
Okay,
And
so
then they become ghosts because they
women
did this.
who murder children follow adults throughout their life. That just seems like a wasted time. Like, if you have infinite time because you're a ghost now, go to Disney World and sit on the ride next to people.
Yeah.
Or like go visit the
Or
Grand
just
Canyon.
like pop up on some random kid's wagon.
If I become
Exactly.
a ghost after death, I'm moving to Ireland. I'm going to go live in one of those castles
Right.
and spook people.
and spook people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only spook mean people, though.
But yeah,
or people who just like creepy stuff like
Yes.
there is another reader's story here from Brian in Colorado in
Hi,
October
Brian.
of 2008. Hello, Brian. La Llorona woke me up once when I was camping at Indian Fall Rapids on the Yampa River in Colorado when I was 15. I walked with her to a cabin, and there was a man in the bed. All I saw was his foot, but when she yelled at me to run, I did. If I didn't smash my toe on a rock, I would have run off the cliff into the Indian Falls Rapids. I saw this article in this month's Mountain Gazette about her and looked her up on the internet. My experience was 21 years ago.
Oh my goodness. She was like, run. It's really important that you run, but that way toward the water.
Yeah. So she was trying to kill him. She was trying to kill a 15-year-old boy. This one is from Tonia Apelar of Eureka, California, circa November 2005. When I was in the 7th grade, I had a frightening dream. I saw myself standing on a dark road with the only illumination coming from a dim streetlight. The ground was wet, and in the distance, I could hear the sound of rain falling and the tap-tap-tapping of footsteps coming towards me. Peering into the darkness, I could make out a woman dressed in all black with a dark lacy veil covering her face, moving toward me. Strangely, as the mysterious woman grew closer, so did the rain.
Ugh.
When the woman was about 15 feet in front of me, she looked over my shoulder. When I turned around to see what she was looking at, I saw a young child dressed in a white nightgown, playing with a doll in the middle of a puddle of water. When I turned back to her, she was right in front of me. The veil was lifted, her eyes were abnormally wide, and her face was no more than 3 inches away from mine. Her terrifying eyes stared into mine dead on until I awoke in a panic. I looked toward the window. It was raining. As you can imagine, I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I shook off the dream and thought nothing more about it. Until a year later. On that night, I was spending the night with my friend Veronica, who had also invited another friend named Sarah. In the course of the evening, Sarah, who is Hispanic, began to tell us some of the legends and ghost stories of the Mexican culture. When she began to tell the tale of La Llorona, I didn't think anything of it at first. Then she began to tell me of how the legendary spirit travels by water, dressed in all black or white, and is almost always seen wearing a veil. Sarah continued to tell us that La Llorona lifts her veil only to her quote-unquote victims, that in their afterlife, she has chosen to help her find the bones of her lost children. So basically, like, she was choosing this girl to help her find the bones of her lost children. Now, I constantly wonder if, in my afterlife, I will be forced to help her find the bones of her lost children.
Oh, no. I'd say no, thank you.
No, thank
No,
you.
thank
I don't want to
you.
work with you.
No.
Pete Sanchez shared with us about crossing the San Bernard River Bridge in East Bernard, Texas. East Bernard is southwest of Houston in Wharton County. Mm-hmm. This old community built its first residence around 1850 on the east side of the San Bernard River. Today, the San Bernard Bridge spans the river. Several years ago, from whenever this article was written, so who knows when, Mr. Sanchez was driving along in East Bernard with the radio blaring. As he was crossing the river bridge, he was startled as he looked to the right to see a semi-transparent woman sitting in his passenger seat.
Ooh, no. See, that's exactly that episode of Supernatural that I was talking about earlier. That's how they found her, is Dean is driving on this road, and then all of a sudden she's in the back seat.
She seems to like doing
take
that.
me home. And he's like, no.
She seems to like just like popping up on transportation. Dressed in all black, the spirit's face was covered by a black lacy veil. Obviously frightened,
I mean, yeah.
Sanchez hit the gas hard, speeding past the bridge and not looking back into the passenger seat. It wasn't until he was past the bridge that he found the courage to look again. The spirit had vanished.
Okay. See, that's even worse, because like when you see a spider and you're like watching it to make sure it doesn't come at you, and then like something happens, your phone buzzes or whatever, and you look over and you look back and it's gone.
Yeah.
And then you're even more freaked out because you're like, where did it go? Is it in my hair? Is it in my hair? Oh my God, it's in my hair.
Why didn't he get out of his car?
This is exactly the episode. Because she jumped off a bridge. So when you drove over this bridge, that's when she ends up in the car.
Well, maybe that's what they got.
I bet it is.
Was this man's story. So Mr. Sanchez readily admits that he is still freaked out today by that ghostly image. When Mr. Sanchez read the story above about the Garcia brothers encountering a tall woman, which if you remember, the Garcia brothers were the guys in the wagon who she just randomly popped up. Mm-hmm. When Mr. Sanchez read the story about the Garcia brothers encountering a tall woman wearing a black tapelo and a black net over her face, who appeared on the wagon seat between them, he obviously saw similarities. We agree. I mean, yeah. Uh-huh. Daisy Calderon is now 12 years old, and truly believes that La Llorona is real. Now, 12 years old. She's probably like 18. Yeah, she truly believes that La Llorona is real. My story of La Llorona takes place in Mexico. In Mexico, not New Mexico, sorry. When I was 8 years old, when my abuelita, which is grandma,
I knew that one,
told me to go to the store to buy soda. This was during the evening as we were getting ready to eat supper. My brother and I left for the store, and along the way, we heard wailing, but we didn't pay much attention to it. However, as we continued on, we saw a young woman walking toward us. All of a sudden, my little brother, so an 8-year-old and an even younger child, probably not going to pay attention to it. But anyway, all of a sudden, my little brother started to cry, and the woman ran toward him, acting as if she was going to get him. When we saw that she was floating instead of walking, we began to run back to our house and told our grandmother and mom what had happened. We just locked the door and started to pray to God to help us and make La Llorona go away.
That's creepy.
This title is An Attack by the Weeping Woman.
Okay.
This is a story of Emily Ortiz. When I was about 8 years old, I had just started becoming interested in all things paranormal. I was researching La Llorona when all of a sudden I heard a noise, so I decided to check it out. Then I heard it again. It sounded like it was coming from the bathroom, so I walked in and stopped at the sink. All of a sudden, my head was pushed into the sink and the water started to run.
Oh, awful.
The sink finally filled all the way and I was trying to breathe. Then I couldn't breathe anymore. I thought I was going to die of lack of oxygen. So I screamed and my mom came in. She pulled my head out after a struggle and hugged me tightly. She knew I wouldn't drown myself, so she started thinking. Then she froze and her face turned white. She screamed and almost fainted. I asked her what was wrong, and she said with a stutter, La Llorona.
Ugh.
So that's the last. That's the sighting that I'm going to leave that on.
One more, what was a really popular sighting, and mostly because there was a photograph taken of what was believed to be La Llorona. It kind of scoured the internet for a really long time, but then unfortunately the actual story came out. So, okay, At an intersection, there was a picture taken of a woman with long black hair. And the picture was not of the face. It was like of the back of the woman. She had really long, black, kind of straggly looking hair. And if I find the picture, I'll put it in right here so that you guys can see it. And it was right at the intersection. There were cars going by. And she had what looked to be a long white dress on, or some kind of gown. And it was right near a pond called Duck Pond. So it was near a body of water. And that body of water long ago used to cover that entire area. But now it's mostly land there.
Mm-hmm. Water dries up over, decades,
so
centuries.
It's now just she appeared. What a lot of people said was that she appeared in the middle of the intersection. Somebody did catch a photograph, and it looked very unedited. It looked a little bit blurry, but unedited.
So it looked real.
Yeah, and everybody started like putting it around the internet, and everybody said that it was her. But then the police chief of that town said that he received a lot of calls in about a woman in white on that day, or on that evening. A lot of people called in, so a lot of people saw. But he says later that it was just an adult male dressed in a long robe walking in traffic.
You do you, buddy.
Yeah. He's just out here living his best life. And everybody's just like, there's a woman in white.
It's La Llorona. Oh my goodness.
It's La Llorona. And he's just out here vibing.
A dude in a robe walking around in traffic.
So.
What if the police chief is just trying to keep everybody calm?
Conspiracy theory.
I know.
Oh no. It's probably just a dude.
But I have a story myself. As you were talking about her following around Hispanic people, I never connected this till literally just then. I had this boyfriend at the time who was Hispanic, and we were walking from my dorm room up to Myers, which is this kind of Walmart-y grocery store that you guys don't really have around here, unfortunately. It's amazing, but sometimes you don't have it.
Most things that are amazing we don't have around here.
True.
So much truth.
And it was raining out, but we both, not like pouring rain. And it was, kind of warm, and it was sort of like sprinkling, drizzling. Sometimes it would pick up a little bit more. But we were walking to get probably snacks and stuff. I don't remember, but we used to make that walk all the time to get junk food.
Just to clarify, what state is this in?
This is in Ohio.
Okay. So that's not too terribly far away from where the other sightings were.
Right.
But.
And and I'll explain why it may or may not be her. But anyway, so we were walking, and way far ahead of us we were on, like, there was a road here and there was a sidewalk here. And way far ahead of us was, we started to hear from a distance wailing crying, like scream crying. Oh. So loud, so heartbreaking, just wails. And we were looking around for it because we couldn't even tell what direction it was coming from, somewhere in front of us. And as we kept walking, and we both were like huddled up together, like, what is happening? In the far distance on the sidewalk, we could see what looked like a lump, but it was like a moving lump, sort of. As we got closer, we started to see that it was a woman sitting on the sidewalk with her knees up, and she was like rocking and screaming and crying, and she was wearing a white dress with what looked to be a black shawl or sweater, and it looked like she had dark hair. And it didn't look like there was a veil, but we were also, it was nighttime, it was dark, it was raining, it was hard to see.
And not all sightings have her wearing a veil.
Right, yeah. And the dark hair could have been a veil.
Yeah.
Who knows? But anyway, so she was screaming and like crying and like shaking and like, not shaking, I don't know if she was shaking, but like, rocking. And we get closer, but we stop at our tracks. The thought in my head was, this woman is in trouble. Mm-hmm. We need to call the police.
Yeah.
So I get out my phone and I start to dial, and he's like, no, wait, we should just ask her. And I'm just like, what if it's like a trap? Because I have in my head that
Also,
somebody
what if it's
might.
like a crazy person, like
Right, exactly.
who could like go off on you like as soon as you talk to her.
Exactly. So I was like, I don't want to get close to her. I don't want to ask her questions. Like we were still very far away from her at this point, and she obviously hadn't noticed us yet, or at least it didn't look like it. She never turned her face in our direction, but we could see her kind of like at a profile. And anyway, so I'm just about to call 911, and then all of a sudden I look, she just stops crying, like boom, stops, silent. And then she stops rocking. And I'm looking at her, like watching her, thinking, okay, is she all right now? And she really slowly starts to stand up. And then she turns and looks at us. And then I'm just like frozen. I didn't even look at him. I don't know if he was frozen. I could not even call the police because she was so creepy, just standing there staring at us. And then she just turns again the other way and walks into the trees that were next to the sidewalk. And I'm like, we start walking again because we didn't hear anything. And I have my phone that is set on 911 ready to dial. And we start looking around for her, and we can't find her at all. She just
vanished.
Poof. Just poof. Because it wasn't woods. It was like a line of a few trees. It was like a line of trees that you can see through if you get close. And then after that was sort of a field. And then way after that were some houses.
You should put your hand all the way in front of my face. You were no longer in the video.
Sorry, I was trying to visualize where we were. Well, we were looking around for her, like where do we even tell the police that she went? And it was silent. No more crying. We couldn't see her. And then I put away my phone and we walked the rest of the way to Meyer, and we did not say a thing until we were almost all the way there. And we both were just like, what happened?
What? That's hilarious. I'd have been.
Well, we fast walked, but we were both huddled up together like this, holding each other. So it's a little hard to run while you're like,
nah, screw you, I'm running. I'm leaving you all the way behind. You can have fun.
And of course, the rain, the water, the white dress, the possible veil, but probably hair, the wailing, the creepy way that she stared at us, and then also the what felt like vanishing. Right, we weren't children, yeah, and it never occurred to me till you said the whole Hispanic, like she follows Hispanic people, that the person I was with was Hispanic. It could also be that night was a big party night in the area around the college that I was going to.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility it was a very, very drunk or drugged out lady from a party.
It was me.
It was you. Yeah.
It was 100% me.
That's when I met Blake.
That's when you met me. Yeah.
Almost, because you vanished. Where'd you go?
I was trying to get somewhere. I had places to be.
I usually don't include that story in like ghost stories because I do understand that it was probably just a drunk girl because it was a party night.
Me.
In the area, and it was a college town, so
Yeah.
So that is my possible La Llorona story. That's probably not.
I mean, it could be.
It could be.
It was very weird.
What percentage do we believe that she actually saw
La Llorona? Let's talk about that after we talk about our percentages in general.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that while, yes, this may have happened like a long, long time ago, and maybe it did happen, the Hispanic people maybe used it as like a forewarning.
Like a deterrent for children?
Yes,
like
a deterrent.
Like a moral type of story.
Yeah.
I think a lot of fairy tales were made for that purpose.
For keeping them behaving and being nice to their parents. And
do I think that she might be a spirit? Yes. Do I think that like she might genuinely be like a spirit that's still out there searching for her children and everything? Yes. Do I believe that the sightings are necessarily real? No.
I think it's possible that some of the sightings might be actually La Llorona. Some of them might be people walking down the street.
some of them probably are
drunk girls from parties. I mean,
and random dudes in robes walking in traffic.
Yep.
I totally agree with you that I think a lot of it could just be stories and legends that are morals to people or deterrents for children or something like that. It could absolutely be based off of a real woman named Maria, and this is what she did, and it's just absolutely horrible that she did it. But then, when in a neighborhood, if there's somebody that has been arrested or they're the fighting people or whatever it is, you start to sort of create stories around them and spread it around the rest of the neighbors. And that's the haunted house.
Yeah.
So
Boo Radley.
Yes, exactly. From To Kill a Mockingbird. I think what had happened was a woman did something like that, and then they're just, over time, the legend just grew beyond her.
A lot of these legends, I do think that they have some historical basis story somewhere.
Yeah.
That maybe, depending on which one, we found it or we haven't found it. If there is a string of sightings, like when we did the Nessie episode, all of those sightings happened like within a couple years of each other, right?
Yeah.
Like I think a bunch of them was happening in like a couple of months period, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Now, as we've already established, I absolutely believe Nessie existed. I don't think she still does. But I think that in this case, with a lot of these La Llorona sightings happening around the same time, it could be a case of mass hysteria. That's not even to say that those people who reported those sightings didn't have some experience at that time.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe those people. But what they saw might be explained in a different way.
Yeah.
It depends on the person. It depends on the sighting.
As far as percentages go, I believe in her probably 30%, or at least some semblance of her. I'm talking like the spirit, not the legend, because I do think that the legend could be based in fact. I think that
I think it's probably absolutely based in fact, like 80% based in some sort of fact.
The spirit herself, I'm at about 30%. Yeah, that she at least exists.
Okay. As far as existing, I would say 80%.
Wow. Okay.
Because
existing still, or having existed at some point?
Existing still.
Okay.
Do I think that she exists? Yes, because I do believe in spirits and I do believe in that kind of things. Do I believe that she is malicious? No. 30% in the legend.
Oh, see, I'm kind of opposite.
Because do I think that the spirit herself exists? Yes. Do I think that she exists in the way that the legend says she does?
I don't think that spirits care too much what the living are doing.
I think
that's just my personal view on it.
Because
I feel like they're caught up in the reason that they haven't moved on.
I think that that's why she might follow the kids around and everything, because that was part of the reason that she hasn't moved on, was because she can't find her own kids. So maybe she's like,
I don't believe that part of the legend.
Let's make these kids mine.
I don't believe that part of the legend.
I believe she couldn't move on because of her kids.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that's where the moral stuff comes in, and the people are like,
How about percentages for you?
I mean, I'm like I said, at like 80% that there's some sort of historical basis to the story that somebody cabbaged onto, and it just became this urban legend.
Yeah.
As for her existing, I think that it's the woman in white situation, and that there are multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that some of them are probably still in existence and still haunting, maybe the places that they lived. So I would say 60% on that one.
Wow. Valid. So I had the highest percentage that she exists in general.
Highly unusual for us.
Had the lowest.
I had the highest, which we switched. Because I'm normally a fairly skeptical
You're
person.
very skeptical, and that's okay.
But because it's a spirit, I think, is more the reason why I think I'm a little bit more believing in it versus you.
Well, at least we're not at the 0 point whatever that we usually are.
I mean, it depends on what it is. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, a lot of our things that we talk about here, we're like, no.
Yeah, there's no way.
I'm Kalie.
I'm Rachelle.
And I'm Blake.
And we were
Paranoia Percentage. Gosh, can you imagine just you're laying in bed and you look over and there's a lady laying in bed with you, and she's
it'd freak me out.
Where are my children?
I bet. I would just wake up and just
I would jump out of bed, run to the bathroom, call the police.
Unless she caught you.
I mean, yeah.
Now I'm going for the throat. You're laying in bed. I really hate to be my significant other one day who just like comes to bed late or something and is just messing with me.
Or like dream you turns them into a skeleton or something. Like dream you turns them into something creepy.
And then I just like straight in the nose.
Oh my God, what was that?
Blake, why?
Why?
I thought you were La Llorona.
Who was that?
How do you not know who La Llorona is? We did an episode on it.
And then they go, I don't watch your podcast. And then you go, oh, that's the most terrifying of all.
That's the most terrifying thing you could ever say to me.
You can find us on Twitter at Paranoia Percent, Tumblr as PDubs Podcast, and Facebook and Instagram as Paranoia Percentage.